In this lesson, I'm going to show you about more stylistic options such as adding vignettes and playing with contrast. So I've gone back to this photo of Sam. Here we have the vignette option and you have the strength, radius, and softness. Dragging the strength to the right will increase the vignette, a dark vignette. Dragging to the left will actually create sort of a white vignette. It's easier to see down here in the bottom corners rather than the top because you have some the dark jacket down there. You may want a dark or a light vignette, but that's basically how you add it. The radius is the size. So dragging to the left will make it smaller. To the right will make it a bigger vignette, or the circle will actually be smaller inside your frame. The softness is the feathering of the vignette, so it blends in more smooth. So if I increase this, you can see that the radius gets a little bit smaller, but it feathers it a little bit softer. So I usually increase the softness quite a bit. Now this is kind of extreme, but I just want to show you what it does. Dragging to the left, you get a harder edge. So let me undo this. With portraits and with images, why would you even want to add a vignette in the first place? The basic idea is that it's helping to focus the eye's attention on whatever is in the middle of the frame. So adding a vignette is a nice stylistic approach when you want to direct people's eyes to the center of the frame. Great for portraits like this. I know that it can be a style that can get overused a lot. I remember when I first started doing photography back in high school and college, I was adding vignettes to every single photo that I had. That's something that I think you should stay away from. Usually the more subtle the edit, the better, in my opinion. And so with vignettes, I'm very subtle with it, but it is a nice thing to add. I can turn this on and off, and you can see that, maybe you aren't noticing as much because you've been watching this edit, but if someone sees this for the first time, the vignette looks pretty natural, and it does draw the eye to the center. So that's how to add a vignette. The other thing that I just want to talk about is contrast, and let's go ahead and use a different photo for that. Let's go back to this photo. We haven't edited this at all, but adding contrast to a photo like this is a great idea because you can make more of a silhouette of these trees. So this was shot at night, a night photo, and you get some red lights here. I don't know if that's from a car, maybe from the taillights or from the focusing of the camera. I don't know what that's from actually. But to get rid of that, you can add more contrast. You can do that with the light features up here because you have a contrast slider. There you have it. So just by dragging to the right, you can add more contrast. The darks become darker, the brights become brighter, and now this is completely silhouetted. So that's one way to do that. Let me undo that. The curves slider is a great way to add contrast. The typical slider goes from the bottom left to the top right. This is a line, and this is sort of your way of adjusting. The darks are on the bottom left, the whites are on the top right. And so by clicking this curve anywhere in the middle and dragging down, you're actually going to make the whole image darker or make the whole image brighter. If I want to make the darks darker and the brights brighter, I can bring down the darks by bringing them down here in the bottom left and then going up to the top right and dragging this above the original line. And that creates a nice, what we call S-curve, which is your sort of standard contrast curve to use when you want to add contrast. If you want to do the opposite and actually make it less contrasty, you can do, I guess it's kind of a Z curve. Not really. It's just the opposite of an S curve. And that makes things less contrasty, bringing up the darks, and you see more information in the darks there. You can actually see the histogram in the back of this curves window, which shows you sort of where the darks are and where the brights are in this image. A lot of the colors or parts of this image are sort of in this mid-range, but you do have some blacks. You see this green spike on the left. That's your blacks that don't have any information. So using the curves feature is a great way to just quickly add contrast to your image. And we already saw that with the color feature, you can make this black and white by decreasing the saturation. But with Mac Photos, you have a black and white feature right here. By opening up this and then clicking the on button, it's going to actually automatically make our image black and white. So for silhouettes, it's kind of a cool style. You've got this grain option for photos that can actually add grain. And some people like doing this as a stylistic approach, because when you're shooting with film cameras, especially with black and white film, you often got a lot of that grainy texture in there. So this can be a nice stylistic approach to give it that sort of old-timey feel, both for landscapes like this, but also for portraits. So those are the three sort of stylistic things that I want to show you in this lesson: adding a vignette, making things more contrasty, and adding sort of a black and white grainy texture look. In the next lesson, I'm going to be showing you how to save and export photos so you can get quickly to sharing your photos with the world. Following that, I will have a couple full sort of walkthroughs, full demonstrations of editing a couple of these photos here that you can follow along with, so you see not just how to use the tools, but how to use the tools like a pro to edit photos. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next lesson.